960 e-commerce sites hit by Magecart.
Hey Tony, I hear you have an update on Magecart for us.
Yep, Magecart is back in the news again. This time from Sanguine researchers, they reported that over 960 different e-commerce sites were actually hit with Magecart. It looks like it was done within about 24 hours.
Wow.
With the article, it was really interesting. It looked like it was one of the Magecart groups. I think they termed it Group 7. But this one in particular likes to use automation while they're scanning various websites looking for exploits. In this case, the researchers were not definitive on exactly what was the cause, but it looked like it was a PHP flaw.
Okay.
Where a lot of these sites, they weren't patched. So as the scanning occurred, they found PHP, they tried to exploit it. They were successful, and then they were able to put in the credit card skimmer, that's what Magecart is.
Obviously, something like that has to be automated, but I think just finding those vulnerabilities in that amount of time, and then also pushing through that exploit to get your code onto that system, that's a big deal.
These Magecart groups, to go back to it, the 7 core cyber criminal groups. Their targets are not very specific. So they don't necessarily target only like little mom and pop e-commerce sites, but they go from, large all the way down to SMB and the mom and pop sites. It all comes down to how the e-commerce on those sites are actually set up.
Yep.
And if our criminals can actually get on those sites and inject their credit card skimming code. The credit card skimming code typically will consist of trying to scrape all of the credit card information, names, phone numbers, addresses, anything that they can use to have financial gain.
So if I'm someone who runs my own online store or something, what can I do to make sure that I don't get Magecarted?
Well, that's a really good question. If you're hosting an e-commerce site, whatever programs, applications you're using to run your e-commerce site, I would suggest always try to keep in the loop with those applications anytime they release any patches. If they announce that there is a vulnerability that was found and they've got security controls.
So from a purveyor's perspective, from an IT professional's perspective, make sure things are up to date. And then Matt brought up a great point by keep logs.
There are certain parts of your site that should almost never change. There might be parts where the database gets updated or users can maybe upload something, but the core functions of your site, like the front page or the part where you process credit cards, shouldn't have new JavaScript references added to them or new JS files added almost ever.
Yeah, the code that touches payment card information should be the same.
Right, so I would watch that like a hawk, because the way the attack works is they have to inject that code into your site in some way. If they can't do that, or if at least you notice it when they do that, you can at least shut your site down and say, we got hacked, clean up, figure out how they got in, hopefully, and go from there. Now, also, I would recommend that if you use any third-party JavaScript libraries that you don't host locally, maybe consider hosting them locally, or do the same kind of monitoring on those. Because if someone managed to compromise that third-party site, wherever that library that you're relying on is, and sneaks the code into Magecart, guess what? You got Magecarted, and you didn't have to do anything. So, and some of those are probably above the skill level of some site operators, but I would recommend they look into it.
Yeah,
I think those are fantastic items, and as you said, especially for mom and pop shops, where it would be easy for them to just kind of click over to a third party site. That is where they personally have to be careful. But all of the items that you brought up are excellent points for anyone that's hosting an e-commerce site to make sure that they at least take a look at.
So I think really the story is mostly for people who run e-commerce sites have them understand that this is an ongoing thing, that just because you haven't been attacked yet doesn't mean that you're not going to be the next target, and that there are precautions that you should be taking to prevent this from happening to you and to your customers.